The Braavosi galley moon's memory cut a silent wake through a dawn-pink sea, its oarsmen beating time beneath the crimson and cream tapestries that screened them from the chill. On the aft castle, Tycho Nestoris stood alone, gloved hands clasped around the rare cedar rail. Dragonstone lay a league ahead, its volcanic ridges floating in mist like half-shaped nightmares. From the Tower of Windworm, a faint light winked. Answer, perhaps, to the Iron Bank's lantern lashed to the galley's mast. Tycho had sailed before to lords and kings who owed more than they could repay, but never to one whose books were still uninked. A king in embryo, he told himself, tasting iron in the salt wind. The bank preferred debtors to embryos. Embryos were dangerous. Yet the keyholders had cast their votes, 63 to 41, in favor of the stag. Gold dragons clinked inside cedar casks lashed beneath the deck. Black iron bars, 5,000 of them, each etched with Braavosi glyphs, sat stacked like unlit coals beside the gold. And sealed in Tycho's sleeve lay the contract, dry as old parchment in theory, yet in truth more molten than any ink had right to be. It pledged coin in sums not even the Lannisters in their golden prime had dared petition. Pledged ships, crossbow stocks, masters of coin. It pledged, in the neat angular Braavosi script, victory or forfeiture of Dragonstone, its fleet, and the blood of House Baratheon henceforth. The galley slipped beneath the basalt maw of the harbor. Dragons carved in black rock reared above the sea gate, mouths agape, stone wings black with decades of salt. They look hungry, Tycho thought. We bring them gold to feast on, or we feed them ourselves. The courtyard stank of forge smoke and damp wool. Stannis Baratheon awaited the Braavosi envoy beneath the carved wing of a weather-beaten dragon, his cloak snapping around narrow shoulders. Behind him, Maester Pylus shifted on thin legs. Beside him stood Davos Seaworth, gloved hand resting hilt-light on the bone-white grip of the short sword Stannis had gifted him after Storm's End. Tycho disembarked without ceremony. His boots struck wet stone. Sea spray touched silver streaks in his beard. He bowed the polite 3 inches, no more, no less, to the would-be king. Lord Stannis Baratheon, Tycho greeted in flawless Stormlander cadence. I bring regards from the 63 keyholders of the Iron Bank of Braavos. Stannis's jaw locked as if against some unseen wind. I am no lord. His eyes, pale and penetrating, cut through marble gloom. I am king by right, though mocked by half the realm, and I'll have no courtesies that cheat my title. Tycho inclined again, precisely 4 inches this time. Then your grace, I bring what kings require, means. He unslung the scroll. Davos's eyes widened at the wax seal, the Braavosi titan holding broken chains in each fist. Stannis took the vellum, broke the seal between thumb and forefinger, and read in silence. Pylus peered over his shoulder, lips moving. When Stannis spoke, his voice seemed to scrape the courtyard stone itself. You are prepared to loan me 5 million golden dragons, half in coin, half in material, arms, ships, corn. Repayment begins the first day my crown is acknowledged by all 7 kingdoms. Interest at 10%. 9, Tycho corrected and caught the flicker in Pylus's eye. Provided your grace agrees to the collateral clause. Stannis glanced at Davos. The Onion Knight shifted uneasily. Tycho could read it. Dragonstone, our only foothold, held hostage till the debt is paid. It is dear, Stannis admitted. Yet cheaper than I'd dreamt to buy a kingdom. He raised flinty eyes to Tycho. Why? Tycho answered with a banker's candor. His Grace Joffrey is small, his grandsire old, his mother unloved, his uncle unblooded. His realm staggers beneath Lannister gold. Gold which, I fear, exists mostly in boasters' song. The bank has traced their minds. Yields fall. Debts rise. Braavos backs winners. We wager on the iron within your name, Lord Stannis. For a heartbeat, the basalt dragons seemed to lean closer. Somewhere a forge hammer rang once, like distant thunder. Then Stannis Baratheon dipped his head in a fraction of a nod and put flame to the signature line, pressing his signet hard into the wax. The dragons on the sea gate, if stone could smile, would have. Winterfell, 800 leagues north, dreamed beneath soft snow when the raven arrived. Catelyn Stark read the ciphered note by firelight while Ned paced. "The Braavosi have chosen a champion," she whispered. Ned's long face darkened. "Stannis." Across the hall Bran's wolves stirred in their pens. The old gods beyond the window shivered in the wind. War, Catelyn felt, had quickened pace. Ned summoned Maester Luwin, and before moonset ravens flew. One to Riverrun, one to Storm's End, one hooded gray to the Eyrie where Jon Arryn's widow still mourned. The board reshapes, Ned thought, tracing a map with calloused fingers. "And I hold pieces carved of ice while Stannis hoards iron." King's Landing gleamed beneath a noon too bright for secrets. In the Tower of the Hand, Lord Peter Baelish reclined among ledgers when Varys drifted in like idle smoke. Littlefinger glanced up, surprised. "I thought you'd be picking wings from flies, my dear Varys. Spies scarce suit silks. A little bird sings louder this morn than any fly," Varys replied, fans fluttering. "The Iron Bank has emptied vaults, they say, and the coin flows not to the lion but to the stag. To Stannis, specifically." Littlefinger's smile froze. He reached for a fresh quill. "If Braavos backs the stag, the realm's purse grows light indeed. Your accounts may prove delicate." Faint chuckle. "I hope you've not misplaced any dragons of your own?" Baelish dipped quill to ink, scratching numbers faster than Varys could watch. Yet in the soft lamplight Varys spied sweat beading at the corner of Baelish's brow. "Finance," Littlefinger mused, "is merely another word for leverage, and leverage bends knees." He looked up, green-gray eyes sharpening. "We must see whose knee bends first." Dragonstone smithies roared like caged drakes as autumn ripened toward frost. Gold flowed into copper mouths, was hammered into helms crested with blackened stag's horns. Iron became longships, 2 a fortnight, their prows carved into rams. Grain ships from Braavos crowded the harbor. Tycho's clerks built tidy cabins for counting, and within a month Dragonstone's narrow streets rang with a dozen tongues. Norvashi stevedores, Ibbenese sailcutters, Volantine smithmasters who whispered of wildfire-green alloys. The men benefited first. Stannis ordered wages paid from Braavosi coin on the barrelhead, double what Robert had ever promised. "A man paid in full," Stannis told Davos, "will complain less than one promised the moon." Davos walked the wharves at dawn, handing out copper as token first wages. The looks on gaunt faces, hope, suspicion, gratitude, gnawed him. Money was balm, aye, but war's fever burned beneath. Master-at-Arms Ser Roland Storm drilled new levees in the yard. Smiths and fishers learning shield wall forms. The Braavosi contract included 1,500 cells words. Tycho saw to that, but Stannis would not rely on coins words alone. "Steel sold to the highest bitter cuts, true enough," he said. Yet loyalty sharpened on Duty Blunt's treachery. Melisandre of Asshai watched the training from wind-whipped parapets, scarlet silks snapping like captured flame. Her red eyes saw deeper than swordcraft. In the sparks she read futures pooling crimson. She approached the king one windy dusk, drawn by the glow that licked around him unseen by mortal eyes. "Your grace burns brighter," she murmured. "Gold feeds the forge of destiny as oil feeds fire. But beware, the cost is more than coin." Stannis glared, weary. "I have given blood, my own, my brother's, my daughter's health, and I'll give more. Only crown and justice matter. The Iron Bank may yet demand both." Melisandre's smile flashed like embers. "A debt of flesh can drown a kingdom as surely as wildfire under the Red Keep." Stannis said nothing. The wind flung her hair against his cheek. She turned away, red silk carving fire shapes in dusk. At Storm's End, Ser Imry Florent found himself host to 30 Braavosi accountants come to weigh the castle's granaries and gauge its seawalls for collateral. Shrewd though he was, even Imry balked at the invasion of quills and ledgers. When ravens brought news of Lord Renly's southern pageant, rose banners, bright knights, laughter echoing along the Rose Road, Stannis's couriers met them at the gate. "Renly's tourney is cancelled. His backers scatter. The Iron Bank has matched each pledge coin for coin, and some proved counterfeit besides. Renly had yet to crown himself, and already he bled supporters. Florent wrote to Queen Celis, his cousin, confessing doubt. Celis burned the letter unread, trusting in both Lawler and Braavosi arithmetic. Midwinter in the north drew longer nights than men remembered. In Winterfell's library, Samwell Tarly traced treaties between Braavos and Westerosi kings long vanished. Jon Snow, new-minted steward to the Lord Commander, listened as Sam recited. In the time of Aegon V, Sam read, Braavos offered a loan to rebuild Summerhall at 10% yearly. The crown declined, and Summerhall burned before repairs began. His voice faltered. Some say refusal sealed the tragedy. Jon frowned. You believe gold itself lights fire? No, Sam flipped a page. But want can spark folly, and coin feeds want. Jon stared into the hearth, seeing wildfire shadows dance. Then Stannis will ride into flame upon wagons of gold. Far across the narrow sea, Daenerys Targaryen walked the walls of Qarth with Ser Jorah Mormont. News from Westeros rode the caravan routes. Stannis Baratheon, Dragonstone, Braavosi gold. Jorah watched her eyes narrow. If gold turns Stannis' claim iron hard, she murmured. He will sweep the 7 kingdoms before I set sail, or bleed them red enough that their knees weaken, Jorah replied. A burned realm may hunger for a dragon's mercy. Daenerys touched the warm shell of Drogon sleeping on her shoulder. Let him carve the path, then. I will fly above the ashes. Spring arrived thin-boned and hungry. Lannisport's markets emptied as Braavosi merchants paid double for grain, shipping it east to Dragonstone. Lord Tywin's gold still gleamed but bought less each day. The old lion wrote furious letters to King's Landing and got only Peter Baelish's bland reassurances. Coin is a river, my lord. It reaches its own sea. Ser Kevin rode hard for the capital, demanding sense. He found Joffrey hunting cats on the small council carpet while Cersei counted casks of wildfire. Fools, Kevin muttered. Stacking green hell instead of yellow coin. Varys listened, eyes half-lidded. At Dragonstone a fleet was birthed. 50 galleys, oak-ribbed and iron-shod, slid into Blackwater Bay under sigils of the crowned stag. Each bore a Braavosi figurehead. A woman masked in coins, arms weighed with chains she broke anew each wave. Sailors called her Lady Debt. They said she granted favor so long as purses jingled. Woe betide the captain who missed a payment. Davos sailed the flagship Resolute on its maiden voyage, testing her teeth against spring gales. She cut waves like a saber, brazen and sure, yet Davos's heart weighed heavy. He remembered the siege of Storm's End, the nights of onion broth and silent prayers. Gold feeds the belly, he thought, but hope feeds the soul. And Braavos sells no hope, only futures mortgaged. That night he sought Stannis in the painted chamber. Candlelight flickered over the great table map. The king studied wooden keeps tipped in stag's head silver, pushing them inland toward King's Landing. Sire, Davos ventured, gold may raise sails and swords, but men fight harder for belief. Stannis's lips thinned. They will believe in pay well met. I'll see them rewarded after victory. And if victory costs more than Braavosi coin can buy? Davos asked quietly. Stannis eyed the Onion Knight, once smuggler, now lord. Then I will pay in mine own blood. I have little else. His fingertips brushed the carved rivers of the painted table. But mark me, Davos. I will sit the Iron Throne. Across the sea, the Iron Bank's counting houses chimed like anvils. Contracts multiplied. Grain from Myr, sell sales from Tyrosh, fig stores from Lys. Each ledger inscribed Stannis' sigil beside a sum. Senior keyholder Denio Terrys watched the figures swell and whispered to Tycho, "Every dragon committed is a dragon denied House Lannister. But dragons fly both ways. Should Stannis falter, we risk ruin." Tycho sipped pale ash wine. Stannis will not falter. His pride forbids it. Pride breaks, Denio said. Tycho gazed through leaded windows toward the Titan's dark silhouette. So do chains. We must choose which shackle to snap. When Renly at last donned a crown of rose gold, he found his camp smaller than rumored, his purse thinner. Lord Randall Tarley rode out, but half his tale had diverted to Dragonstone's promise of triple pay. Lady Brienne saw banners vanish by night. Only Stormlander Hart bannermen remained stout, but even they muttered of wages. Renly laughed it off before his lords, yet at dusk he scratched at silk hems. "Gold wins war," he told Ser Loras. "Brother Stannis hoards iron coin. We'll answer with gold of another hue, love." He staged tourneys, but the purses shrank. Love was free, armor cost silver. The whispering would never echoed with Lannister rout. Instead, Robb Stark met scouts who spoke of Stannis' fleet crowding the narrow sea. Balon Greyjoy weighed ravens and pike and smiled at the thought of coffers moving south, leaving northern shores ripe. On the banks of Blackwater Bay, the master of ships sat in a counting booth, logging keels. He was a Bravosi named Marco, thin as parchment, pen flying. When Tyrion Lannister arrived, fresh-made hand, anger cloaked in jests, Marco bowed but offered no ledger. "These are not your ships, my lord. They are collateral." Tyrion's grin stiffened. Collateral cuts deeper than swords. He wrote to his father urging haste and found the Raven's fee had doubled overnight. Bravosi Guild decree. The Iron Throne loomed empty in Stannis' dreams. Cold, jagged, infinite. Each night he climbed its steps, armored in shadow, crown unseen. Yet as he reached the top, the throne weighed more, iron bar by iron bar, each etched with Bravosi glyphs. He woke drenched in sweat to the rust smell of the sea. Melisandre joined him on rain-slick battlements. "The flames show a crown of debt upon your brow," she whispered. "Great power, but heavy." Stannis' voice rasped. "Heavier had I none. Lawloress favor is free, only faith is asked." "Faith!" Stannis barked a humorless laugh. "Faith kept Robert drunk and Renly fair-spoken. Give me iron and coin." Melisandre's eyes glowed ember red. "Iron skews, coin corrodes, but light endures." As summer died, the first fleet of 50 galleys bore Stannis' banners through the gullet, joined by 19 Bravosi warcogs, and turned west toward the coast of King's Landing. Word leapt ahead of oars. "Stannis sails with the wealth of Bravos, a sword of pure gold." In King's Landing, Fawn Tower bells tolled in panic. Small folks scurried to hide what little coin remained. The gold cloaks demanded triple wages or threatened mutiny. Cersei opened every treasury door only to find shelves bare, emptied into wildfire kegs. Tyrion cursed aloud and set smiths forging giant chain links while ravens screamed overhead. Bravosi coin, it seemed, could buy everything save surprise. On the river Blackwater, fog thickened. Resolute led the vanguard. Davos held the tiller, wary of lulled waters. Stannis paced the deck, sight hooded beneath iron helm. Far ahead, the Red Keep's towers loomed like charred fingers piercing dawn. But as the tide turned, bells rang thin, metallic, terrible, and wildfire blossomed emerald beneath the chain Tyrion had stretched across the river. Flames reached sky-high, wreathing Bravosi cogs in burning sick-green petals. Iron Bank gold melted, pouring through scupper holes like molten betrayal. Davos's heart lanced as piety and copper links ignited. Men screamed priceless screams. Stannis watched, jaw granite. Tycho Nestoris, aboard the Bravosi tributary, felt the heat on his cheeks and tallied costs even as watermen dived flaming from decks. Wildfire, Davos realized, cost less than coin. Tyrion had wagered ruin against riches, and for one blinding moment flame bought time. But Stannis had ships to spare. 3 galleys burned, then 5, but 40 remained, and the chains snapped under their weight. Flaming wrecks drifted downstream while new hulls slid upriver under covering fog. Tyrion's wildfire, spent too soon, left only smoke. Stannis turned to Davos. "Advance." And so they did. Hours later, ash drifted like black snow over the charred hulks. Tycho knelt on Tributary's deck, quill scratching salvage estimates into a soot-rimmed ledger. The Iron Bank had lost coin in hulls and cogs, but Stannis' flag still flew high. A sound investment, he assured himself, even as flames lapped distant keys. In the city, small folk whispered that Braavosi gold burned green, cursed by foreign gods. Yet merchants opened shutters and traded again. Braavosi agents paid double for ash-soaked grain, triple for pitch. Gold washed fear clean, if only briefly. Night fell blood-dark. At camp outside the city walls, Stannis stood before 1,000 Braavosi sellswords, each man's wage chest open to reveal whole silver moons. He addressed them with flint and iron. Fight for me, win, and your purses will be swollen as no mercenary ever dreamed. Fail, and every coin you clutch will fund the orphan of the man who kills you. He drew Lightbringer, though its glow flickered against night wind, and raised it high. The Iron Throne is mine by right and debt. Braavos has wagered her fortune on my cause. I will not see her bank or my honor broken. The sellswords cheered, silver glinting like starlight. Melisandre watched from a ridge, eyes bright. Flames danced in her cupped palms. Within their restless tongues she read shapes of iron twisted to chain, crowns dripping molten gold, and a throne of debt paid in dragonfire. She smiled, whispering R'hlloreth's name to the dark. To be continued. The night's breath settled thick upon the encampment as a hush washed down through the slanted tents like a velvet curtain over restless players. Even the hammers at the field forges dimmed to an occasional muted clang, a tired heartbeat instead of a war drum, and the river air stank of pitch and smoking tallow where the hulks of wildfire-claimed cogs still guttered far downstream. In the lull between one gust and the next, Tycho Nestoris traced shallow grooves in the brass inkwell before him, listening to the faint click of moth wings around his candle. He had meant to draft a terse report to the keyholders, that the line of credit remained solvent, that collateral was secure, that victory seemed inevitable. But the parchment remained half-filled, sentences abandoned mid-arch like smashed bridges. Each time he dipped quill to ink, some ghost of cracking timber or an oarsman's dying shriek rose behind his eyes, reminding him that numbers bled when men burned. He set the quill down. Beyond the canvas flap the camp murmured. Horses stamping, distant sentries calling passwords in rasped whispers. A Braavosi quartermaster counting bolts of quarrels in the soft sing-song of his native ledger tongue. Uwe. All sounded orderly, profitable even. Yet Tycho felt as though the entire campaign perched upon the prow of a ship still ablaze beneath its fresh coat of gold leaf. He left the tent and let the night swallow him whole. Torches cast erratic halos along the pathways, spinning his shadow into lank giants that stalked him between wagons stacked high with tinned salt fish and barrels of Tyroshi red dye requisitioned for banners not yet sewn. Somewhere nearby, a small knot of sellswords took turns reciting obscene verses in low Valyrian, wagering coppers on who could keep rhythm without slurring. Their accents marked them as fair runaways despite the Braavosi coin that chimed at their belts. Tycho paused only long enough to count heads. 32 by the camp roll, none missing, then pressed on toward the ridge where a rough timber watchtower overlooked the lantern-flecked plain. Halfway up the ladder, he caught sight of Melisandre. She stood unmoving at the parapet, her hair loose and devouring the moonlight, as if the night's frost could never lay its finger upon the scarlet folds of her gown. Below her the torches formed a crude seven-pointed star around Stannis' command tent. But within each point braziers burned with strange orange hearts brighter than any pitch flame Tycho had ever seen. When the wind shifted, it carried the smell of cinnamon and smoke and something older, metallic like hot copper on the tongue. Melisandre's lips moved. Tycho could not hear the words, but he recognized the cadence of a prayer, something rhythmically carved rather than sung. He cleared his throat in polite warning. She did not start. Instead, she finished whatever final syllable closed her litany and turned her red eyes upon him, the pupils reflecting torch glow like twin coals buried in velvet ash. "You keep sums when the night demands sacrifices," she said softly, neither chiding nor mocking, merely stating a fact. "Sums reveal which sacrifices were efficient," Tycho answered, careful to match her calm, "and which squandered." "Nothing offered to the Lord of Light is squandered," she replied. "Fire consumes all, but through consumption he forges purpose." Tycho considered correcting her, reminding her that iron melts at 2,000 degrees, whereas gold slumps like wax at far less, and that a purpose tempered too hot might lose shape entirely, but reconsidered. Instead he asked, "Do you foresee victory?" She closed her lids briefly. Thick lashes brushed pale cheeks before lifting again. "I see a stag of iron crowned with burning coins. I see a lion bleeding out through its golden hide. I see a throne still cold, yet warming. And the bank." His voice was smoother than he felt. "Do you see our investment repaid? Your iron is already part of the stag," she murmured. "If he rises, you rise. If he falls, you sink together beneath the tide." Her smile deepened, a convenient symmetry. "You worship coin, I worship flame, yet each must be fed." Tycho bowed. "Then let us hope his grace feeds both furnaces adequately." As he descended, he heard her whisper to the wind again, this time a line in a language older than Valyria, where consonants cracked like kindling. Inside the command tent, Stannis hunched over the painted table newly ferried from Dragonstone, its sea-whirled forests and mountain ridges illuminated by a ring of sputtering tallow candles. Davos Seaworth stood on the king's right, palms braced against the carved coasts, while Ser Roland Storm, grim and square-jawed, occupied the left, tracing the Black River gouge with a gauntlet finger. Maester Pylus shuffled parchments listing siege consumables. Each time he added a new tally, Stannis's eyes flicked toward the column like a hawk marking field mice. "We cannot starve them," Roland was saying. "Red wine ships still slip upriver at dawn in singles and doubles. The boom chain is broken, but the city's smaller sloops run shallow, hugging marsh banks beyond our patrol arcs." Davos nodded reluctantly. "We catch perhaps 1 in 5, enough to keep their court drunk, if not their small folk fed. We chase fish while a shark circles," Stannis muttered. His thumbnail scraped a gouge in the shared border between Crownlands and Stormlands. "Renly lurks at Bitterbridge. The roses will ride with him sooner than later." Pylus coughed. "By Raven this morn, Lady Celis relays word from the Reach. The Tyrell fleet anchors at Brightwater Keep for refit. Lord Mace prepares grand levies. Levies fattened on last year's bumper crop," Davos added, "and financed by Old Town's vaults." Stannis's head snapped up. Old Town's gold runs through Braavosi fingers this year. He jabbed a scarred knuckle at Tycho, who had entered without announcement. "Tell them." Tycho inhaled the oily candle stink. "The Iron Bank co-purchased 200,000 bushels from Old Town brokers 2 moons past, ostensibly bound for the Free Cities. The cargo contracts assign ultimate delivery to Dragonstone harbors. Lord Mace's quartermasters now haggle for grain already halfway across the narrow sea." He allowed himself a thin smile. "It is difficult to bake bread from promises." Stannis let out a sharp breath that might have been a chuckle filed down into a weapon edge. "So Tyrell's youth may starve before mine do." He flattened a palm on the capital. Tiny pewter towers looked as if they might pierce his calluses. "But the lion still roars, and wildfire still flows beneath the throne room tiles." Davos swallowed. He could almost feel the heat flare that had charred the river earlier that day. Parts of his beard still smelled singed. "We lost 8 cogs and 3 copper barges, sire." 11, Stannis corrected, "and 28 lives. A costly hour's lesson." Maester Pylus shifted on sandaled feet. "Lessons unheeded prove costlier still." Tyrion Lannister's stock of wildfire was thought spent. Yet Alchemists' guild tallies remain uncertain. Tycho spoke without lifting his gaze from the map. "The bank retains 2 agents within the guild. They report dwindling jars, no new production. Niter supplies are scarce." Stannis's mouth tightened. "We gamble the realm on spies now?" "On arithmetic," Tycho replied, raising his eyes. "Jars require saltpeter, brimstone, and a flux only produced in Lys. The Tyroshi blockade that flux in our name. If the Lannisters conjure more wildfire, they summon it from empty air." Stannis drummed stiff fingers on the painted table. "Then we press tomorrow." Ser Roland inclined his head. "A dawn assault?" "A dawn feint," said Stannis. "We test their new chain lengths. At noon we launch stone throwers from the south bank, under cover of fog pumped from burning greenwood. He pointed. Meanwhile, Davos slips 5 galleys upriver past the mud gate. His men will dismantle the winch towers at the base of Aegon's high hill. No chain, no wildfire. Davos bowed. Choose any crew and they'll go. But those keys are swarming with gold cloaks. Gold cloaks who haven't eaten full in a fortnight will not hold against pay doubled, Stannis said. We will offer them coin and pardon once the gates topple. Tycho lifted a brow. Our coin. Your investment, Stannis shot back, pays for swift victory. Or would you prefer a protracted siege bleeding interest? Tycho dipped his head. Interest accrues, your grace, in peace as well as war. Yet a swift victory collects no late fees. He tapped the parchment register Pylus had laid aside. I concur. Strike bold. Melisandre entered then, parting the hide flap as though strolling through an invisible wall of wind. The candles stooped toward her like supplicants. The night whispers of ash and broken crowns, she announced, voice as low as a cellist's hum. But light may yet blind the lion if it bursts at the correct moment. Stannis gestured impatiently. Will your god ignite the walls on command? She smiled, teeth luminescent. He will ignite hearts. Tomorrow I will stand upon the prow beside the Onion Knight. Let the small folk see the flames dance upon Lightbringer's blade. They will know the true king's hour dawns. Davos blanched. He disliked her presence near sea spray and pitch lines, yet he bowed obedience. Stannis's nod sealed the matter. Then dawn breaks our fortunes, Tycho said, and settles my report. Elsewhere within the sleeping maze of tents, 3 brothers of house fell huddled around a low brazier, sharing wine no richer than watered blood. They had once worn oaken pauldrons under Renly's peach banners, but after the Iron Bank's gold reached Storm's End they followed Lady Cella's summons east, swearing fealty to Stannis in a drafty chamber scented with old salt and new parchment. None liked dry accounts, yet each cheered the sound of coins clinking into fresh-cut purses. Now, as they sipped, the eldest, Ser Ronal, ran a whetstone along his long sword and muttered about the cost of loyalty. We fight tomorrow, he said. 5 silver moons extra if we take a knot of gold cloaks alive. Aye, said his younger brother Eric, scowling at the copper cup's reflection of torchlight. Alive's harder than dead. Could ask double. The youngest, Peter Fell, 17 and still smelling faintly of the raisins his first squire gift had included, gazed past the brazier toward the black silhouette of King's Landing. Do you think they'll yield? The city's walls are old. Old stones remember fear. Walls remember coin, grunted Ronal. And we bring coin aplenty. A man who earns double pay under Stannis might yet live to spend it in the city once peace returns. Heard tell the bank pays its debts even to bastards, Eric said, arching a brow. Promissory slips for any sellsword with a left hand still attached after the siege. You'll be able to trade a slip for a farmhold once we're crowned. Peter's throat worked. He imagined a farm, rows of barley glowing amber under a kind sun. A simple life unmuddied by gold or wildfire. Then the brazier popped, spitting sparks. He jolted back to now, gripping his spear shaft. Some 10 paces distant, a pair of Braavosi scribes argued in their own tongue about the misplacement of a ledger page. Next to them, a blacksmith's son from Crackclaw Point slept, boots off, toes blistered raw from drilling. The camp was vast, a stitched-together quilt of kingdoms and conflicting loyalties pinned down by Stannis's rigid will, and by the bank's heavy thumb urging all seams to hold. Within King's Landing itself, Tyrion Lannister awoke long before cockcrow. Twitch startled from a dream in which the chain snapped early and crushed him beneath molten green. Sweat cooled against his chest like river silt. He swung short legs over the mattress and padded to the arrow slit. Below, a thin mist curled above the fresh-dug anti-siege ditches and spiked chevaux de frise erected on his order. Across the water, faint torch dots glimmered. Stannis's camp breathing as one giant, patient creature. The dwarf ground his teeth. Podrick Payne dozed on a bench, booted feet tucked up, sword across knees. Tyrion shook him awake and sent him for Maester Franken with parchment scribbled in cramped, urgent hand. More crossbow strings, more pitch, More small clothes for the common soldiers in Flea Bottom because lice bred mutiny faster than hunger. Pod hurried away, rubbing eyes. Alone, Tyrion poured a cup of watered wine. Thoughts stuttered. Wildfire stocks were low, yes, but not exhausted. He knew of 3 barrels hidden beneath Rhaegar's old stables, sealed with lead stoppers. If he risked them, he could lay another trap, but each jar lost more than coin. It lost options. The Red Keep treasury had stripped itself to bone. Cersei's jewels pawned, Joffrey's tournament dream dissolved. Meanwhile, Tywin sent curt ravens promising relief soon. But soon measured itself differently when gold no longer oiled the axles of the world. Tyrion recalled a Braavosi proverb quoted by an old master of coin. Debt is the only chain the Titan cannot break. Perhaps that explained Stannis' ferocity. He fought not only for a crown but for freedom from his own collateral. Tyrion snorted dark amusement. Part of him almost admired the irony. He dressed, shrugging into the plain boiled leather brigandine he favored for inspections, and climbed narrow stairs to the battlements where Ser Jacelyn Bywater waited. One arm carved from shadow, the other replaced by iron. Together they peered across the dark water. "He'll strike again at dawn," Bywater predicted, voice low. "Fog machines. They haul wet wood to the upwind edges." Tyrion nodded. "Let them. We string lanterns along the bank. The glow through mists will outline their decks for our scorpions." "Scorpions need quarrels," Bywater reminded him. "I've already requisitioned every ash staff in the City Watch's riot stores. Sharpen and fletch them." "I am, Lord." Bywater saluted. Tyrion lingered after the night departed, listening to the river-lapped stones below. Somewhere in the dark, bells of the Great September told a prayer for merciful dawn. He hoped the gods were listening between their quarrels over who held which throne. When dawn did come, it was pale and filmy, like light strained through gauze, perfect for the fog plumes coaxed from damp straw piles on the south bank. Smoldering heaps belched white snakes that slithered along water surface until the channel disappeared in swirling milk. Atop the bow of resolute Melisandre stood barefoot, her crimson gown pinned at the shoulders by iron clasps, Lightbringer in both palms. Each breath of mist that licked the blades fuller ignited into tiny star points before fading. Rowers watched open-mouthed but pulled with steady rhythm to Davos's beat. Below decks the Onion Knight's sons, Mathos among them, checked sealed casks of pitch bombs. Davos had argued for barrels of river sludge instead. His eldest claimed the sludge would fizz rather than flame, but Stannis overruled him. A show of fire was needed to cow defenders once the winch towers fell. Davos reminded himself not to dwell on doubts. He'd chosen this path, sworn this oath. He called cadence, and 8 galleys nose-tip followed resolute through the broom toward the mud gate. On the opposite bank, 3 trebuchets nicknamed the 3 Blind Sisters by their Stormlander crew's flexed rope muscles. At Stannis' command, they timed the volley to the second. They spat boulders packed in straw bundles. The first shot vanished in fog. The second arced too high, trailing a tail of streaming hay, and shattered against an unseen rooftop, sending brick dust geysering above the mist line. The third clipped the city wall just below the parapet. Stones groaned, and men cried out beyond the whiteness. Inside the city, Tyrion Lannister felt each impact resonate through flagstone underfoot. He gritted teeth. "Answer!" he barked. Horns blared, and from crenel to crenel ballistae launched quarrels long as palisade stakes. Most hissed harmlessly into void. A few thunked into wooden hull sides, but fog smothered even echoes. Still they fired, loosing blindly rather than linger in dread-charged silence. Stannis watched from his ridge. Ser Roland Storm stood beside him, shield raised though arrows could not reach that high. Puffs of distant stone dust signaled hits. Somewhere a rumor spread that the Blind Sisters' 4th stone had smashed a crate of wildfire within the Guildhall itself, burning for alchemists alive. Stannis neither smiled nor frowned. He merely noted. When a runner arrived, clothes drenched, panting, bearing word that Davos's galleys were under the bridge piers already with chainsaw files ready, Stannis nodded once. His left hand closed around the carved stag pommel of his sword. "Bring the archers forward," he said. "If the chain rises, cut any rope that feeds it. Tyrion felt the tug first as a deep vibration transmitted through the substructure of the mud gate winch tower, an almost imperceptible tremor, as though the city itself exhaled. He hurried down narrow stairs 2 at a time and burst into the ground-level machine housing just as Ser Osmond Kettleblack cursed at a sudden jolt in the chain spool. The counterweight slackened an inch. Sabotage! Osmond spit. Tyrion's eyes darted. Massive iron links ran under the tower floor, disappearing into the turbid murk beyond. If Davos's men reached that anchor, they could drop the barrier before midday, and Stannis' main fleet would ride the rising tide straight into the harbor. Flood the dry tunnel, Tyrion snapped. Pump every cistern barrel you can. Drown the rats. Osmond hesitated. Water pressure could crack the masonry. Then pray the 7 patch leaks. Tyrion grabbed a mallet from an engineer and slammed it against the brass alarm plate. Bells inside the tower shrieked. Gold cloaks scrambled in confusion. One tripped over a loose bolt and tumbled down a stair, helmet ringing like a crumpled kettle. Tyrion forced his voice above the din. Stand your posts. Archers to the murder holes. Loose shafts down the chain trench. Outside, steam began to swirl within the fog as warm cistern water collided with river chill. The result lifted the mist into ghostly columns that towered above the quay. For a heartbeat, the river seemed to vanish behind walls of drifting silver. Then a roar resounded, a sound both aqueous and metallic, as the chain anchor pin gave way. Iron links slithered, splashing, the snake freed from its shackles. Davos heard the snap from beneath the pier. The vibration rippled through the keel. Sailors cried triumph. Pulleys squealed as his men hauled the broken length onto the deck and jammed portable wedges to keep it slack. Signal his grace, Davos ordered. A Myrish trumpet pealed one sharp note. But as Resolute backed oars to withdraw, a cluster of scorpions overlooking the pier finally caught silhouettes through the thinning fog. Bolts rained down. One skewered a sailor's thigh, another punched through the mast sleeve. Mathos Seaworth, leaning over the rail to watch for pursuers, jerked as a fat coral tore through his forearm. He staggered, blood sheeted crimson onto planks darkened by river spray. Davos shouted, caught his son, dragged him behind a ballast crate. Melisandre knelt. How swiftly she moved, pressing her palms around the wound. No torch near, yet Lightbringer shimmered, and under the ruby at her throat small flames danced, licking the bolt shaft. Later, Davos would swear the wood blackened, charring away until the coral shaft snapped clean, dropping the barbed head free. Mathos gasped but did not scream. He will live, the Red Woman murmured. Somewhere overhead a bell tolled anew, a deeper bell, from the city's heart, not the tower. Tyrion Lannister had ordered the great siege bell rung, a final call for every able man in King's Landing to the walls. But the sound also carried across water like a proclamation of fear. Davos shouted for the drummer. The return call, a triple beat and rolling ruffle, echoed downriver to the main fleet. Beyond the fog he could not see Stannis' banner, yet he felt movement in the current, a faint tug as scores of oars churned, answering the breach. By noon the river's veil lifted, undone by sun heat and residue wildfire fumes. King's Landing's defenders beheld a spectacle carved from nightmare and avarice merged. 40-plus galleys fanned across the channel, brazen hulls glinting in full light, their sails a patchwork of stag sigils and Braavosi 8-point stars. Between prows smaller skiffs scud, packed with archers whose quivers bore fletchings dipped in oily rag ends ready to ignite. The city's waterfront shuddered. Fishermen's wives dragged children inland. In Flea Bottom rumor flew faster tea. Han arrows that Braavos had purchased the king's blood, that Stannis' gold was foreign witchcraft, that even death would charge interest on the poor who failed to pay. Within the red keep throne room Cersei paced, goblet clenched so hard wine sloshed. Grand Maester Pycelle, stooped and trembling, spoke of parley offers. Stannis' heralds claimed small folk would be spared if the gates opened before dusk. Joffrey squealed that he would give the usurper's head to Sansa for a wedding gift. Sansa turned paler than milk. No mention yet of Tywin's host. Still days away, Wheels mired on the Rose Road, carts delayed by feigned sickness among drovers bribed by Braavosi coin. Tyrion reached the throne dais, cloak smeared with brick dust and chain grease. He handed Cersei a parchment. Casualty tally plus revised stock of quarrels. We hold another day. After that, the sum approaches deficit. Cersei drank. Then conjure new sums. Even arithmeticians need ink, he said. Her eyes narrowed. I will bleed you if you fail. He bowed low, smiled thinly, and left. On the ridge, Stannis watched smoke coils from trebuchet strikes drift above rooftops. He sensed the city's pulse falter, like a stag wounded but not yet collapsed. At his side, Tycho Nestoris stood with arms folded behind back, the contract scroll tucked beneath one elbow. The hour ripens, the banker said. I feel the ripeness, Stannis replied. He turned to Ser Roland. Signal the climbers. We take the southern walls an hour before sunset. Archers blanket the battlements. Our sellswords lead. Braavosi helmets shine. Small folk will see the gold and know the bank stands with their rightful king. Roland saluted, spurred his mount. Tycho watched him go. 500 casualties is threshold, he murmured. Beyond that, actuarial curves suggest morale dips inversely for each additional 100 lost. If you breach swiftly, the curve skews in your favor. Stannis' stare could have broken granite. Actuarial curves do not win crowns. Men do. Men respond to numbers, Tycho said softly. A man who believes his life overvalued will risk it gladly. But if he fears becoming a negative tally... Enough! Stannis' voice cut. Hold your sums. When the throne is mine, you will collect numbers in peace. Tycho inclined head. I pray for peace, your grace. It is profitable. Stannis gave a humorless snort. Peace is never profitable for long. War returns, interest compounded. He strode toward his horse. That evening, as the sun bled crimson behind Aegon's hill, ladders rose against the southern curtain wall. The first wave wore Braavosi half-helms etched with stylized keys. From the parapet's gold cloaks hurled stones, boiling oil long since stretched too thin to waste. Lannister archers loosed flights, but many strings had frayed in humid days without proper rest. Meanwhile, Melisandre stood atop a siege tower platform, Lightbringer raised like a beacon. Flame danced along the blade's edge, illuminating her ruby and the hollows beneath her eyes. Some said later that her gown never fluttered despite swirling wind, as if a pocket of stillness wrapped around her. Davos climbed behind the first contingent. He carried no sigil, only a crude oaken shield and the memory of seaborne salt in his lungs. Mathos, arm bandaged, walked at his heel. Below them, sailors from Cape Wrath took the ladders, their chant a rhythmic drumline. Coin and crown, coin and crown. A percussive throb timed to each rung. Gold cloaks at the parapet wavered. Some glimpsed the red woman above the flood of attackers and crossed themselves. Others spotted Tycho's agents clutching strongboxes even in mid-assault. The thought that the bank accounted casualties in real time unsettled many. When the first Braavosi sellsword gained the battlement, he planted a crimson-tipped spear and shouted terms in the common tongue. Yield the gate. Pardons for all. 2 silver stags per man. His accent mangled vowels, but the meaning rang clear. A gold cloak thrust back with a rusty pike. He slipped, dropped it, and the Braavosi's sword point found throat. Blood sprayed across sandstone. The defenders recoiled at the sight. Many realized their pay chests in the barracks stood nearly empty. 2 wavered, stepped aside. Within 15 minutes, the southern crenels blazed with Stannis' banner. Tyrion arrived from the tower post just in time to see the stag's crown rise over the gatehouse. He cursed, grabbed Captain Bywater's arm. Seal the inner ward portcullis. Collapse the Grand Market Bridge now. Bywater hesitated. Civilians still cross. Then let them hurry, Tyrion barked, or let them decide which side feeds them tomorrow. Bywater relayed orders. Chains clanked as the portcullis dropped. Masons shattered keystones along the market's causeway until the central arch buckled, sending 2 donkey carts and a screaming fishmonger crashing into the canal below. Stannis's men halted, momentarily stalled before the fresh obstacle. Davos studied the broken span, gauging whether planks could replace stone before nightfall. Melisandre murmured at his shoulder. Bridges break, fire leaps. She raised Lightbringer. Embers flicked from the tip, spiraling upward until they danced like a swarm of fireflies over the chasm. Across the gap, some civilians kneeling behind barrels saw those sparks and began to shout. Some in awe, others in terror. Panic rippled. A baker flung his loaf basket into the air. Pigeons exploded skyward. Maidens screamed that a witch had set the very air aflame. Others cried that a goddess of flame had come to free them from Lannister tyranny. Inside the Red Keep, Cersei heard those cries through a slit window and felt a crack inside her chest as if some invisible blacksmith had struck marrow with hammer. She sent Ser Boros to fetch Tommen to Maegor's holdfast. In case, she whispered, unable to finish. Full darkness pooled in alleyways when a small door near the dragon pit's base creaked open and a column of 50 gold cloaks filed out under a white rag fluttering on a halberd spike. They were met by a Braavosi paymaster in velvet-trimmed armor who accepted the halberd, snapped the shaft across his knee, and handed each man a stamped slip promising payment upon sunrise roll call. The deserters melted into the throng of camp followers almost invisible, like yellow dye diffusing into ocean. Elsewhere similar capitulations bloomed. A torch waved thrice atop a tower, answered by a whistle. A sally port unbarred from within, admitting a contingent of sellswords before sealing again. Bribes passed hand to hand, slipping across moral lines easier than across physical moats. By midnight, Tyrion's casualty ledger matched Stannis's for once. Over 200 defenders dead or fled, ballista stores half spent. Yet still the Red Keep stood, its ramparts layered behind curtain after curtain, each more labyrinthine than the last. And still wildfire barrels glimmered beneath floorstones, a last alchemist's prayer or curse. In the Braavosi calculation tents, scribes updated risk matrices. If the city fell by sunrise, their projected recovery on the initial loan would exceed 34% inside the first quarter of Stannis's reign. If not, interest began compounding at a rate that rivaled wildfire. Exponential, insatiable. Tycho felt eyes burning behind him as he signed the ledger. He turned. Melisandre had appeared without footfall. "You count coins," she said. "Why not souls?" He answered, "Souls are beyond collateral. Not to my master." She reached out. For an instant, her fingertips brushed the parchment and the ink hissed, tiny blue flames crackling along the fresh strokes before vanishing. The figures remained unblotted. "Perhaps tomorrow you will learn his rate of interest." Tycho stared at the cooled paper. "And what is that rate?" "Absolute." She smiled and drifted away. He exhaled, the candle wavered, and outside the tent distant horns clashed again. One long, too short, signal for a renewed assault at the gate of the gods. Just before dawn, Stannis himself rode to the foot of that gate, helm off, crown gleaming faint in torchlight. He called for a parley with any commander still brave enough to answer. After a tense pause, Ser Jacelyn Bywater appeared atop the battlements, iron prosthetic shining. "Will you yield?" Stannis asked, projecting enough for rows of archers on both sides to hear. "Your city starves between the bank's purse and my justice. Each hour purchased in Lannister blood debt costs you double in commoner flesh." Bywater's shoulders sagged, but he lifted head. "We swore oaths." "Oaths to whom?" Stannis retorted. "To a false king born of incest? To gold that no longer exists? I am the king by blood and by law. Open your gates, stand your watch beneath my banner. I will forgive your service under usurpers." A murmuring swept the wall walk. Bywater hesitated. Somewhere behind him Tyrion hissed, "Hold!" But Bywater raised a horn to his lips and blew a single mournful note, the call for counsel among his captains. He withdrew. Stannis waited stone still. Behind him Davos listened to his own racing pulse. Tycho tallied probabilities. If Gold Cloaks capitulated, King's Landing fell before midday. If not, Bloody Street battle would grind through dawn. Minutes passed like lead drips. Then the gate of the gods groaned. A portcullis rattled upward inch by inch, chains squealing. Davos's men surged forward, but Stannis lifted a fist. Steady. Through the rising lattice emerged a column of city watch, 70 strong, helms doffed, pole arms reversed in sign of surrender. At their head Bywater marched, still wearing his lion badge, but he halted before Stannis, knelt and offered the badge on flat palm. I served a realm, not a family, he said. Do right by it. Stannis accepted the badge, closed calloused fingers around the snarling lion face, and tucked it into his belt. Serve me and the realm will see justice. Cheers rippled through the ranks, but above, Tyrion Lannister spat curses. He grasped a torch, left the battlements, and strode into the bowels of the Red Keep where wildfire barrels waited. His stride faltered only when Sansa Stark, slipped from her chambers, intercepted him at a stare. Tears streaked her cheeks, yet her voice rang clear. My lord, if you burn the city, there will be nothing left to rule. Tyrion stared at her, short and grotesque in the torch glare beside her tall, terrified grace. Something inside him twisted. He remembered songs his uncle Jerian once hummed of Braavosi courtesans dancing in moonlight, beauty fleeting, gold eternal. And he wondered, for the first time in years, if songs might weigh heavier than crowns. He lowered the torch. Pray your northern gods the lion doesn't corner someone more desperate, he murmured. Behind them bells began to peal, not alarm this time but surrender. The Red Keep gates swung open at sunrise. Stannis rode through astride a smoke-dusted warhorse. Davos followed, and Tycho beside him, ledger under arm. Melisandre walked barefoot on paving stones still warm from last night's burning drifts of pitch. Small folk lined the streets in ragged awe, some kneeling, some reaching out with open palms. Braavosi Sells words fanned along ward edges, maintaining order at Spear's gentle prod. No looting was permitted. Stannis decreed any man caught taking coin or virtue without writ would lose the hand that took. As they came before the Iron Throne, Cersei stood on its steps in black mourning silks. Tommen clutched against her skirts. Joffrey was nowhere. He had fled minutes earlier with a handful of red cloaks, last seen racing toward the Kingswood Gate. Stannis dismounted, climbed 3 steps, and halted at Swordpoint's reach. Where is the boy king? Cersei's reply was a barren smile. A king cannot flee his city. Stannis's gaze hardened. Then he is no king. Kneel and the crown passes. She laughed once, brittle. You may judge me, lord of debt, but you are already chained to coins heavier than any crown. Chains can be paid, he answered and turned to Tycho. Can they not? Tycho opened the ledger. The first installment comes due upon coronation. The assets of the crown will meet the interest. Cersei's eyes flashed. The crown's coffers are empty. Tycho bowed. Then we shall begin with the Lannister treasury at Casterly Rock. Contracts bind beyond city walls. Her fury froze to silence. She sank to her knees, pulling Tommen down. Stannis signaled 2 guards. Escort her to chambers under guard. The child will remain as ward until his brother is found. As guards led her away, Cersei whispered a curse. Melisandre watched her pass, ruby shining. Shadow dances long after flame, she murmured. Stannis climbed the remaining steps. The Iron Throne jagged his silhouette into a black saw blade against dawn's glow. He turned, faced the hall packed with soldiers, bankers, and bewildered nobles corralled from hiding, and spoke. I, Stannis of House Baratheon, first of my name, claim this seat by blood, by law, by the gods, and by contract. His voice echoed. The Iron Bank of Bravos has backed my cause. Now I back the realm. Taxes will be fair. Justice swift. Debts paid. He laid a hand upon the throne's cold steel. And should I fail, let this metal cut deeper than any sword. Tycho recorded the words. They would appear in Braavosi archives for centuries. Yet as he inked the final flourish, he wondered if interest truly ended here or merely pivoted to new numerator, new denominator. Coins clicked inside his thoughts like shards of tumbling glass. Davos, standing below the dais, caught his king's eye. For a moment the two men shared a memory. Blackwater's green fire, the cry of drowning men paid in foreign gold, and they both wondered how steep the final invoice might be when blood and iron were tallied. Light streamed through shattered windows. Motes danced like embers in its path. Somewhere a smith hammered 3 slow strokes, that old heartbeat again, but steadier now, measured not by fear but by a new arithmetic of power. The throne room inhaled, exhaled, and braced for reckoning. 5,000 plus words. Wind whistled through the shattered windows of Maegor's holdfast as dawn's first beams flooded the throne room, pooling around the Iron Throne and the man newly seated upon it. Stannis Baratheon stared out over the scorched marble, still hearing the echo of his own proclamation reverberate beneath the cracked vaults. Light shimmered on blued steel. A faint scent of smoke lingered where candles guttered down to waxy husks. In that hush between empire and reckoning, Tycho Nestoris closed the ledger he had kept open all night, slid it beneath one arm, and stepped back into the shadows with the care of a man leaving a dragon's den on bare feet. Steel-capped boots clacked. Ser Roland Storm, cloak ripped but eyes bright, approached the dais. "The Red Keep is secured," he said. "Gold cloaks patrol under new colors. Flea Bottom surrendered without riot once the bread carts arrived." His gauntlet fist-thudded chest. Losses: 168 dead in the final push, 73 wounded. No Braavosi ships fired upon since surrender. Stannis's face, half shrouded by the crown's antlered curve, betrayed neither triumph nor relief. "Casualties will be tallied later." He rose. The iron seat scraped like a smith's file across raw metal. "Summon the small council, or what passes for one." They gathered within an hour in the Tower of the Hand, though the chair at table's head remained empty. Cersei sat flanked by 2 guards, lips pressed white. Tommen, cheeks streaked with soot and tears, clutched a ragged lion doll. Grand Maester Pycelle trembled in a corner, chain rattling a somber hymn of defeated privilege. Ser Jacelyn Bywater, his iron hand polished bright for the occasion, stood stiff behind a stool rather than take it. The last to arrive were Davos Seaworth, salt still crusting hair from the night's exploits, and Tycho, parchment crisp in fist. Stannis entered without fanfare. Lightbringer, newly cleaned yet flecked with stubborn soot, lay sheathed at his side. Melisandre followed, walking where torches dimmed as though bowing. No herald announced them. The hush sufficed. "Seats," Stannis commanded, settling at table's far end. The others complied, save Melisandre, who remained standing behind his chair. "First order governance." His gaze raked the assembly. "Davos Seaworth, you will serve as hand of the king until the realm finds steadier footing." Pycelle opened parched lips to object, but Stannis's eyes speared him silent. Davos bowed, bewilderment writing itself across weather-lined features. "Your Grace, I am no lord of court." "You are honest," Stannis cut in, "and the realm has had its bellyful of courtiers fat on lies." He turned to Tycho. "The Iron Bank will have its own voice at council. Speak now." Tycho inclined his head. "The bank offers continuity of coin and contract. 5 million dragons dispersed, 2 million yet unspent. Interest begins this day. Collateral clauses remain. The crown estates stand surety." Cersei laughed, a brittle chime. "You traded your grandfather's crown for Braavosi chain." She leaned forward. "The realm will break beneath interest long before your justice balances the scales." "Silence," Stannis said, one word colder than ice. "Speak again out of turn and you will leave this chamber gagged." He shifted to Bywater. "Captain, order stands. All Lannister banners are treason until they bend. Casterly Rock will honor debts owed the realm. Assemble writs of seizure for every mine, mill, and counting house within western reach." Bywater saluted. "We lack ravens enough for so many writs bearers." "Then take birds from the rookery at Dragonstone," Stannis replied. "If feathers fail, carry word on foot." He scanned the chamber. "Next, grain. The Reach has granaries. Braavos owns the harvest in transit. We must secure roads before Lord Mace musters. Davos spread a chart. Ser Roland holds Bitterbridge. Lord Meadows yields if offered pardon. Grant me 3,000 spears and swift riders. I'll march at dawn, raise harvest levies to our cause. Stannis nodded. Take them. Leave war galleys to patrol the Mandermouth. No Tyrell barges slip past. Melisandre's voice glided through the candle gloom. The night foresees fire blooming on golden fields. The stag must tread lightly lest corn become ash. Stannis's jaw flexed. The stag will tread where justice leads. Tycho eased an inkpot nearer. If I might, he tapped ledger. Every new campaign increases outstanding principle. Yet each day Casterly Rock remains unbroken worsens risk profile. Consider leveraging Lannister hostages for immediate payment. Cersei stiffened. Tommen whimpered. Stannis regarded Tycho as one might weigh a blunt axe. I ransom no child. An advance, then, Tycho persisted softly. Partial remission of interest for each gold ingot delivered within the fortnight. Stannis folded arms. When Dragonstone was besieged, I ate onions and faith. The realm now will eat purpose. Interest can starve until purpose is fed. Tycho bowed. As your grace decrees, yet coins starve poorly. That afternoon, ravens beat frantic wings from the rookery, bearing copies of 2 proclamations. The first, Stannis Baratheon, first of his name, was crowned king of the Undulls and the First Men, lord of the 7 kingdoms, protector of the realm. The second, all debts owed the Iron Bank of Bravos by the crown were now binding upon every lord who held land or title under that crown. Failure to remit within allotted terms rendered SA. ID holdings forfeit to royal trusteeship. Copies nailed to doors in Gulltown and White Harbor drew crowds. Some small folk cheered. Tax arrears might vanish under new ledgers. Others whispered that Bravos had bought Westeros like a shipload of slaves. Merchant captains cursed. Iron Bank clauses gave Stannis authority to impound cargo until customs duties cleared bank credit. In Old Town, key holders of the faith convened an emergency synod, fearful that tithes would bleed toward foreign coffers. Septon Maribald, wandering preacher, called it the day the stranger counted coins. Evening cooled the throne room, yet tensions smoldered. Stannis stood alone before the monstrous seat, fingers tracing a twisted blade at shoulder height. A sword once wielded by Aegon's sworn shield, bent when he died. The metal felt like frozen lightning. My realm, he murmured, not triumphantly but as one baffled by the weight of a stranger thrust into his arms. Footsteps echoed. Davos approached, bearing parchment. Renly's former knights encamped at Long Table send terms, he said. They'll recognize your crown if allowed to elect their own Lord Constable and keep their tourneys free of royal levy. Stannis's mouth curled. They treat kingship like a tourney purse. He took parchment, tore it. Tell them loyalties are sworn, not bartered. Davos hesitated. A soft hand now spares hard steel later. A soft hand breeds callous hearts, Stannis answered. I will visit Long Table myself. They will bend or break. Melisandre emerged from side door, flames licking ruby. A king must forge unity in fire. Go yet bring the sword of light. Shadow follows crown. Sheath your riddles, Stannis growled. Speak plain. A darker coin enters play, she said. A lion disinherited hires assassins from across the narrow sea. One bears a face that shifts, another the milk of a poppy that kills upon scent. Stannis's knuckles whitened. Who? Your brother's son. Her eyes glittered. Tyrion Lannister. Davos caught breath. The imp hunts shadows, not thrones. He hunts solvency, Melisandre whispered. A dragon devours flesh. A dwarf's mind devours treasuries. He will strike where iron turns brittle. Among your coiners, your granaries. Stannis turned to Davos. Double guard on the royal mint. Place Stormlander men, no cells words. Davos bowed. As you command. Might be prudent to offer terms to Lord Tywin. Safe retreat to Casterly Rock if he yields gold and hostages. Tywin barters only power, Stannis said. We'll take both. Prepare writs of attainder. In a candlelit alcove of Baelor's September, Grand Maester Pycelle bent trembling over chipped marble. Varys, spider of whispers, glided from shadow. I still serve, Pycelle rasped. Yet I fear new masters. Varys's smile glinted. Serve coin and live. Serve justice and linger. Serve light and burn. He placed a parchment heavy with Braavosi seals in the maester's hand. The bank drafts new histories. Write wisely, Pycelle read. Details of grain tariffs, shipping quotas, compulsory audits of sept holdings. Some so vast they dwarf Tyrell hordes. His hand shook. The faith will revolt. The faith worships light, Varys intoned. But even light casts shadow when coin dims. A thunderclap shook stained glass. Outside, summer's last storm marched inland, whipping banners around half-burnt turrets. In its roar, Pycelle heard the brittle creak of an old order splintering. 3 days later, Stannis rode with 200 knights and 800 foot toward Long Table. The small folk lining the Rose Road watched column after column of men in burnished mail stamped with stag crest and Braavosi star. Many knelt, some prayed. Others whispered of taxes due and children hungry. At Bitterbridge, Lady Arwen Oakhart opened gates, pledging swords if thieves were hanged within the week. Stannis accepted fealty, ordered immediate trial of highwaymen currently dangling in cages. Justice first, pageantry later, he told Davos. Behind them rumbled baggage wagons laden with casks of Iron Bank silver. Soldiers would be paid on time, quartermasters in coin, not promises. Yet each mile south trimmed treasury margins, and Tycho on his gray mare kept an abacus handy, clicking beads with each distribution. Near dusk on the 4th day, a courier in dusty Tyrell green galloped up under truce flag. He bore a sealed letter from Lord Mace, entreaties of negotiation, claims of innocence, offers of marriage alliance. His youngest daughter to King Stannis's nephew Edric Storm.
Stannis Toreseal, scannet script, gruntet.
Lord Mace seeks to save his harvest, he said, passing missive to Davos. When his silos empty, he will sue for lesser price. Tycho coughed discreetly. A marriage pact might stabilize your claim. I will not sell Edric as hostage to golden roses. Stannis spurred forward. That night Davos found him alone by campfire outside the command pavilion, forehead nursed by stormlight. Your Grace, Davos began. Fierce justice wins wars, yet peace needs soft edges. A son of storms end wed to a Tyrell maid might still the reach. Stannis stared into the fire. Soft edges cut no throats. Davos pressed. They may open granaries. The bank cannot feed us forever. Stannis's jaw set. I sailed from Dragonstone with iron intent and Braavosi backing. If I bend to every purse, I become Robert. Boasting, brawling, broke. He flicked a twig into flames.
No.
Let Mace Tyrell taste hunger. Then he will learn discipline. Davos withdrew, troubled. Tycho stepped from shadows. The hand speaks wisdom born of ports and ledgers, Tycho said. Ships founder upon rock, yet rock profits nothing if harbor trade ceases. Stannis rose, towering above the banker though weary lines etched his cheeks. The bank's coin bought my swords. It did not buy my crown's conscience. Tycho inclined.
Conscience. No.
Yet interest accrues heartlessly. Thunder growled overhead like a forge bellows. Rain began to fall, each drop sizzling on embers. Stannis strode into pavilion, leaving Tycho beneath dripping canvas. In King's Landing, Melisandre walked the crypt corridors beneath the Red Keep where the Targaryen skulls once hung. Only 2 remained, Balerions and Merryxes, black and dust-cloaked. She lit no torch, her ruby pulsed soft glow. Before the cavernous socket of Balerion, she whispered prayers in tongues dead before Valyria burned. Visions flooded. Shadows of iron coins tumbling, drowning. A stag crowned with embers stumbling. A silver lady on a smoking dragon flying toward dawn. Fire danced along her eyelids. Sweat streaked cheek. She murmured a name, Daenerys. Across the seas, in the great harbor of Meereen, Daenerys Targaryen stood on fist of the Harpy fortress. watching ships from Westeros disgorge sacks of grain bearing Braavosi sigils. Ser Barristan Selmy reported that Iron Bank factors now purchased excess stores in Slavers Bay, shipping them west at triple price. "They feed a war," he said. "A Baratheon war." Dario Naharis laughed. "All wars taste of coin, my queen." Daenerys's brow furrowed. "Then we starve coin. Refuse them further trade. They'll sail to Volantis instead," Barristan warned. "Better to pocket their gold, strengthen our fleets." But the Dragon Queen eyed silver waves with a predator's focus. "Gold can buy ships, but ships sail lines on water. Dragons carve lines across sky." Drogon shrieked above. Embers rained upon the parapet. She stroked black scales, wondering how far iron and gold could reach before incineration. Back at Long Table, banners fluttered in uneasy wind as Stannis' vanguard arrayed. The castle gates gaped open. Inside, Renly's former Rainbow Guard, 5 knights stripped of colors but proud still, knelt in courtyard. Lord Mathis Rowan watched grimly, weighed by anxiety. He presented keys, pledged obedience. Stannis accepted but demanded oaths on pain of land forfeiture. Tycho tallied each new liege, stamping wax tokens symbolizing credit lines reopened. Night feasts were sparse. Stannis forbade rich meats until harvest secured. Only bread, onions, and salt pork were served. Knights grumbled at Spartan board. Davos ate in silence, remembering his siege year's broth. One hush-late hour a shadow crept along ivy-coated wall, scaled parapet, slipped past 2 snoring guards, and entered counting room where strongboxes slept. The figure, a man small and lithe, wore leather-dyed mottled gray. Torchlight glinted on mismatched eyes. He produced a vial, poured clear liquid over lock seams. Metal hissed, corroded. He lifted a lid, revealing rows of Braavosi chits. A boot scraped. Tycho stood in doorway, hand on dagger none guessed he carried. "Faceless men seldom break such obvious locks," the banker said. The intruder smiled. "I am no faceless man." He raised hands empty, merely eyes for a friend. "Lord Tyrion?" Tycho mused. "Names burden messengers." He gestured at the chits. "When gold chains kings, any who cut chains are liberators." "Or thieves," Tycho replied. He advanced. Steel winked. A dart flicked. Tycho ducked. Metal thudded post. The shadow blurred, leaping window. Tycho sprinted, arriving as figure vanished over wall into moonlit orchard. Horns sounded. Guards converged. They found only broken footprints leading to moat where water lilies floated. Next morning Tycho presented the dart to Stannis. "My lord, your enemies target solvency." Stannis scowled. "They target weakness. Then shield your coin as you shield your crown." Tycho placed contract addendum on table. A minor clause. Bank may provide additional security. 10 Braavosi silent sisters sworn to guard vaults for small premium. Stannis skimmed parchment. Ink lines curled like leeches. He signed. Tycho bowed and departed to send Raven. Meanwhile, in Harrenhal's soot-black hall, Roose Bolton convened a council of northern captains. News of Stannis' coronation reached them with Lannister refugees. Tywin's host fractured after losing supply lines to Braavosi embargo. Bolton's pale eyes narrowed. The fox now hunts the lion. He sent his bastard Ramsay forth with 500 spears to observe the realm's accounts. Code for pillage western banks before Braavos seized them. Littlefinger, disguised among refugees, watched. He realized a market when he saw one. That night he dispatched a cryptic letter to the Titan's Daughter Tavern in Braavos, offering brokerage of special assets from Casterly Rock, ledgers, mine charts at discount. Months rolled. Stannis' banners climbed the Mander, cutting reach convoys. Lord Mace mustered yet found every quartermaster circumvented by Braavosi blockers who bought surplus with Silver Star ingots. Tyrell morale withered. But in the west, Tywin marshaled new sellswords funded by covert coin from Ironman raids on Lannisport. Every chest Tywin filled meant 1 missed payment on crown interest. Tycho's ledger pages multiplied, margins red-inked. In council chamber, Davos argued for tax relief to marketplaces. Let merchants breathe, he urged, or trade will flee to Essos. Tycho countered. Relief now means higher levies later. Stannis clenched fists. We levy on lords, not small folk. Yet lords pass burden down, Davos replied. Break that chain. Institute fixed tithe ceilings. Forbid surcharges. Tycho frowned. Contravenes collateral clause. Lord's revenue backs debt. Stannis glared at banker. Rewrite clause. Tycho stiffened. Contracts forged cannot be uninked. Contracts anchored to crowns can, Stannis said, rising. I am crown. Melisandre's voice drifted behind him. Unbind one chain, forge another. The Lord of Light offers absolution without ledger. Tycho's face paled. He saw entire fortunes wobble. He bowed. The bank does not oppose amendment, provided compensatory considerations. He produced new scroll. Stannis eyed Davos. Hand, negotiate. Davos swallowed. We'll examine terms. Late that night, bent over parchments, Davos saw cunning loops. Penalty deferments offset by extended maturity, variable rates tied to grain yields. The bank's risk hedged thrice. He rubbed aching eyes. The realm he served, the man he loved as king, sat entangled in a net of numbers stretching half a world. He found Stannis at Rampart watching moonlit flags. Your Grace, he said, coin snared good men. We win battles, but each victory tightens knots. Stannis's gaze remained distant. I once told you justice needed sharp edges. Now I see edges cut alliances too. He exhaled frost. Nothing worth forging comes without tempering. We will temper this realm with coin until it rings true. Thunder rumbled far off, summer's death groan. Below, riverboats filled with reach grain crept toward kings landing under new tariffs halved by royal decree. Small folk cheered at quays. Tycho tallied deficits in his cabin, frown deepening. On the narrow sea, a storm churned. A single galley bearing Lannister crimson raced coastal shallows, Tywin aboard. At dusk he unfurled a black-rimmed raven scroll. Invitation from Pentoshi bankers offering to refinance at half the bank's rate if he could deliver Dragonstone's original collateral contracts. Tywin stroked white whiskers, weighed pride against profit. Then he wrote reply, meet at salt pans with double rate. Bring Bravosi clausebreakers. Behind him, a Sellsword captain chuckled. Gold buys imitators, old lion. Tywin's glare hardened. Imitators bite softer than banks. Seas shifted politics. The Iron Throne, though possessed, sat lonely. Joffrey, captured by northern scouts near Hayford, languished in dark cell. Cersei, confined to Maegor's rooms, plotted escape but found each guard's purse stamped with Bravosi keys. Loyal to sums, not queens. She sent secret pleas to Euron Greyjoy. Ravens vanished over sea storms. In Old Town, the High Septon died. Some whispered of a Bravosi apothecary's tonic. A new Septon, younger, reformist, rose preaching liberation from foreign chains. Faith militant banners resurfaced. Stannis frowned at reports. Tycho smiled thinly. Religious unrest often required loans for rebuilding. One bitter dawn, a courier burst into Long Table's chapel where Davos took confession. A fleet of Ironborn sails the Mander, he gasped. They fly a banner. Red Kraken holding Golden Lion. Stannis assembled council within minutes. Reports followed. Ironborn raiders funded by Lannister gold-struck grain barges bound for capital. Fires speckled river like bloody constellations. Davos clenched map edge. Ironborn can sail shallow but cannot row forever. Intercept at Meidler Point. Ser Roland agreed. Tycho paced. Destroyed grain equates to unpaid interest. Resolve swiftly. Stannis's fist hammered table. I sail tonight. He ordered fleet south, left Davos to marshal levy. Melisandre stepped into his path. Your place is throne, not deck. The throne will rot if famine reaches capital, Stannis retorted. She placed hand on chestplate. Fire answers fire. Death answers death. Let me ride with you. No, he pushed past. In harbor his flagship, Lady Det awaited. He boarded, sails snapped, oars dipped. Red Woman stood pier end watching until masts shrank to splinters against dawn blaze. At Meidler Point mists clung low. Ironborn longships prowled shallows, torching barges. Suddenly Braavosi galleys surged from haze, rams gleaming. Arrows hissed, boarding hooks clanged. Stannis led charge across gangplank, Lightbringer flaming in rainy gloom. The sight of King Aflame broke Ironborn ranks. Some leapt overboard. Yet amid chaos one longship slipped astern bearing crimson sails. Tywin stood upon stern castle, pale but resolute. He locked eyes with Stannis across waves frothing with blood. Crossbow bolts whistled between them. A Braavosi cog slammed the longship's flank. Tywin stumbled, vanished amid splinters. Flames licked rigging, smoke swallowed deck. When smog cleared, longship lay capsized, mast jutting like broken lance. No sign of Old Lion. Stannis stared, expression unreadable. He raised sword torch to sky, a silent salute or condemnation. News of Tywin's presumed death spread like plague. Lannister host fractured. Sel's words demanded payment. Gold wagons missing vanished into riverbeds. Casterly Rock closed gates, steward scraping vaults half empty. Iron Bank emissaries arrived within weeks, contracts in hand. Forfeit procedures commenced. Cersei, hearing, broke mirror in fury. Tommen wept. Varys at her shoulder murmured, "When gold is gone, only whispers remain." She glared. "Even whispers cost coin." He smiled. "But some debts I pay gladly." In Bravos, keyholders raised goblets to toast ultimate solvency. Yet one, Deniotaries, frowned. Victory breeds hubris, he warned Tycho via mirror-glass message. Stannis trims interest, stirs faith. Be wary. Tycho answered, "A debtor king can shatter chains only by shattering realm. He will temper." Yet when mirror dimmed, he massaged temples. The numbers, though trending to green, carried shadows. Unrest lines, famine risk, faith uprising probabilities spiking. He penned letter, recommend partial debt forgiveness in exchange for long-term port concessions. Prevent backlash. But he sealed it, hesitated, burned it, wrote softer version. Back in King's Landing, Davos oversaw redistribution. Grain from spared barges, Tyrell stores purchased under new fair price decree. Crown grain tithe partially remitted. Crowds cheered the hand. Faith militant brothers patrolled yet found small folk fed and quiet. Their sermons turned from uprising to humility. Davos fair tithe ceilings were posted in markets, each stamped with King Stag and Braavosi star. Melisandre watched from September steps, ruby glowing. "Light dims when coin buys piety," she whispered. Davos bowed. "Feed a man and he prays louder," he said. She smiled. "Until hunger of soul gnaws again." Winter's breath arrived early. Sleet battered shattered towers. Stannis returned triumphant. Tywin's ring pulled from drowned finger as proof. He placed it on throne step, symbol of old debt paid in blood. Crowds roared. Braavosi horns blared. That night, feasting in torch-filled hall, Stannis raised goblet. "The realm stands solvent. Cheers. Grain flows. Justice reigns. Cheers. But vigilance never sleeps." Silence. "Tomorrow we convene Court of Lords to codify tax justice and debtor reforms." Murmurs. After feast, Tycho approached. "Your Grace, the bank applauds stability. Interest reduction possible pending long-term concessions. Exclusive tariffs on Dornish wine. Control of Gulltown Mint." Stannis considered. "Dornish wine fattens decadence. Bravos may have it. The mint stays realm-owned." Tycho noted. "Acceptable." Davos exhaled relief. Melisandre's gaze smoldered. Moon high. A scream broke holdfast quiet. Guards found a Braavosi silent sister sprawled near vault. Throat red smile. Chit's gone. Blood message on wall. No chains, no crowns. A coin from Pentos lodged in eye socket. Stannis invoked curfew. Search battlements. Assassin vanished. Tycho shook. The bank's invincible aura cracked. Melisandre whispered, "Shadow walks." Stannis ordered her to rouse fire visions. Flames showed masked man with mismatched eyes again. Dart thrower in orchard. Davos whispered, "Jaqen?"
Melisandre replied, "No."
A mirror of Jaqen, a debt collector from deeper vaults. Stannis growled, "I pay debt in steel. Find him." In Pentos, Tyrion sipped sweet wine overlooking moonlit harbor. Varys joined. "Your message reaches Bravos," the eunuch said. Coin trembles. Tyrion smirked. "A realm built on loans stands on sand. Kick one pillar, watch palace totter." Varys's eyes were sad. "Palaces fall on. Peasants first." Tyrion toasted. "Then persuade your new king to feed peasants, without Bravosi shackles." Thunder rolled beyond the bay. Distant lightning danced. "Change rarely arrives without fire," Varys sighed. "Good," Tyrion replied. "I brought flint." At dawn Stannis convened Lord Tribunal. Lords Meadows, Rowan, and Oakhart sat right. Captains of Faith militant left. Tycho presided with Ledger. Davos mediated. They debated tithe ceilings, debtor prisons, land bonds. When Rowan balked at interest on old Tyrell loans, Stannis struck table. "The crown now pays interest in your name," he declared. "You will meet obligations or forfeit estate." Rowan paled. "Your Grace, we cannot conjure coin." Stannis gestured to Tycho. "The bank offers restructure." Tycho produced contract. Lower rate, longer term, mortgage on vineyards. Rowan signed. Faith deputies glowered at foreign influence. Melisandre watched flames flicker in braziers near dais. Each contract sealed by wax stamped with Titan emblem feeding fire's greed. Outside, small folk queued for grain rations. They spoke of fair king and foreign banker in same breath. Praise entwined with suspicion. A bard strummed tune, Iron Crown on loan. Laughter mingled with worry. Winter deepened. Snow-dusted kings landing for first time in memory. Supplies held, though barely. Davos's rationing worked but demanded constant Bravosi shipments. Tycho's galleys arrived sheathed in ice. Crews grumbled of mermaids frozen to bows. Each bale offloaded meant new line in ledger. One midnight, Davos woke to horns. A blaze rose in harbor. 3 grain ships aflame, guards slain. On charred dock they found sigil painted in soot. A broken crown within coin circle. Pentoshi sabotage. Stannis convened war council. "We strike Pentos," Ser Roland urged. Melisandre nodded. "Fire for fire," Davos cautioned. "Open another front and the realm starves." Tycho agreed. "War in Essos defaults collateral." Stannis paced. "Then we hunt saboteur. Hand. Find him." Davos set spies. They trailed whispers to Flea Bottom Alehouse, found courier with mismatched eyes. Cornered, he drank vile, foam at lips, dead before confession. Parchment in boot bore lion seal fused with kraken. Tywin's ghost still funding war. Stannis snarled. "Enough half measures." He promulgated edict of solvent peace. All Westerosi lords must audit ledgers by bank accountants. Any found funding sabotage lose head. Faith militant balked. He ordered them police the audits. Conflict averted by turning zealous swords to coin hunts. Tycho marveled. "He bends opponents by binding them to his debt." Melisandre whispered. "Chains of silver stronger than iron." Years inched. In north, winter wolves roamed. Jon Snow, newly Lord Commander, sent Raven. Walls stores low. Request grain. Stannis dispatched 30 wagons, financed by Iron Bank credit earmarked for frontier security. Tycho objected. Stannis glared. Night's Watch defends realm. Realm secures debt. Tycho relented, writing in margin unusual collateral. Davos delivered wagons to Castle Black himself, meeting wildling envoys freed by Jon's pact. He saw how debt of honor bound men stronger than gold, and returning south he pondered lessons. In capital, small council changed. Pycelle dead of age, replaced by Maester Kettle white-robbed. Bywater became master of ships. Melisandre sat sometimes, sometimes vanished seeking fire omens. Cersei grew gaunt in tower, though guarded rooms furnished fine. She plodded still. Tommen fostered under Davos's tutelage, learning fairness. The bank thrived, taxes steady, mines reopened under crown oversight, Tyrell alliance formalized after hunger threatened. Marjorie wed Edric Storm, bridging houses. Interest rates trimmed, yet principle remained mountain. One eve, Stannis and Davos paced ramparts. Snowflakes melted on pauldrons. We rebuilt yet remain debtor, Davos said. Stannis nodded. A king serves realm. Realm serves debt. Perhaps my greatest sin, binding both. Davos studied friend. Maybe freedom lies not in breaking chains, but forging them into something else. What? Stannis asked. Rails, Davos replied. Guide future kings lest they wander. Stannis's breath fogged. Then we lay those rails. He looked toward east where dawn's red blush rose. And pray they run straighter than coin's crooked path. Far beyond, in Bravos, Tycho closed final ledger for the year, noting profit, losses, and an unusual line item. Royal advisory. Debt converted to infrastructure bonds. He smiled. The bank would own rails, ports, and roads. Stannis would own realm built atop them. Interest endured, but now spun with purpose. In Red Keep Hall, under iron blades still cold, the king drafted decrees, limiting future loans without council majority, mandating grain reserves, creating post of royal comptroller chosen from small folk guilds. He signed each with firm stroke. Melisandre watched candlelight dance on ink. Light found balance, she said. Stannis set quill aside. For now, shadows wait. She smiled. Then let us keep the fires stoked. Flames flickered. Chains clinked far off where vault doors closed. Snow drifted through broken tower slits. And high upon jagged throne, a king of iron and debt held realm together by will, flame, and the slow, hard arithmetic of justice.